Alright, today I got a Cummins ISX tore down. It's a single cam engine. Head gasket blew. I think this is about the third head gasket this truck has had. So it's time to cut some counter bores. Liner height's measured out at about 10 thou. So the spec is anywhere from 7 to 14. That spec is kind of crappy because you should have them all 14. The spec should just be 14. There should be no range. But this one blew right at the front of number one here, right beside a head bolt. And it was pushing coolant out the reservoir and blowing it up all over the truck, making a huge mess. So we're gonna cut some counter bores today. I don't have the new liners in yet, but what I'm gonna do, I always start with an initial cut. I use a K-line tool, I'll show you that in a second. I do an initial cut in the bore, get them all straight. Once I get it set up here, I'll kind of zoom in and show you what I mean by that. Lots of times these counter bores are machined crooked, and also when they're low like that, the clamping force from the head pushing the liner down to the block isn't good, and the liners will move and then they'll wear into the block even more. So it's just lots of problems, all caused by one little simple thing, and that's what causes the head gaskets to blow. Head gaskets blow, push air into the cylinder head, then you get cracked heads. Kind of lots of the ISX Cummins problems come from this one thing. Earlier blocks don't seem to have the same trouble, but these later blocks really have a lot of this trouble. Probably 9 out of 10 of them are crooked and low, and any of the ones I've done that I've cut, knock on wood, have been good. So I'm gonna get the tool set up and we'll do some initial cuts, get everything straight, and go from there. This here's the tool, KL 5000 or 50,000. It's K-line is the brand. There's a cutter head down here. You can get different cutter heads for different engines. This block is what kind of holds it down onto the deck surface. And make sure those are nice and clean. Then you clamp it down, get it centered. You do a couple reverse rotations with it to center it up. And then there is small shims under here. So once you have it set in there, you will take shims and put them underneath the stopper at how far you want to cut it in. So, but I'm going to do that baseline cut first, and then I'll put the new liners in and measure what I need to cut into it. Because if you do it now, that thing will cut crooked, and you're going to end up remeasuring anyways, because you'll be measuring off the high side, and then once you cut the high side down, it's not going to line up because you got to make up that difference. So first thing we're going to do is take our little foamy plugs. We'll start with cylinder number one. We'll put that way down in there. Keeps the debris from getting everywhere. Once I get everything set up, I'm going to be using a little bit of transmission fluid to lubricate it and help with the cut. You're going to want to make sure you cut by hand to help with the cut. I'll get that thing on there. Okay, so I kind of get these a little bit snugged up. They got to get tightened down yet. I need to put a ratchet on here, do some reverse rotations. That gets the tool kind of centered into place, and then I'll tighten these down. After that, we're going to put a shim in there. We're going to start with like probably just a 10 thou. Actually, depending on the ridge that we got in there, we might have to do quite a bit of a cut. We'll see how it cuts, and then we'll kind of figure out what we need for shims there. Because if you see way down in here, you can see they got that ridge. So what we want to do is get rid of that ridge. And we want a nice flat surface to stick our new cylinders in and measure off of. So we're going to get rid of that, get that all cleaned up. Sometimes it could take about 15 thou of a cut, but we'll get her spinning around here and see what we need to do. It just goes under here like this, and then you tighten it back up again. So now there's that gap in there that's 4 thou. So we can cut, and it's going to go down. That's going to stop it at 4 thou deep. We'll see where that gets us. We might have to do it again. The good thing about something like this is that always stays the same. So once we do the first cylinder, all we do is move this over, center it, and cut, 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 cut. See how it cuts all halfway around, and then it got easy there. So that's kind of a good example of how uneven this is. So this would have been sitting in a high spot when I put the 4th thou shim under there, and I come around, cut the high spot out, and now it's dropped down, and now it's not even touching anywhere, and I haven't even cut about 80% of the circle yet. So you can see I'm just barely starting to cut that edge. So we're gonna put the 10th thou in and give it a good cut. We'll know we're doing a good cut when we have clean shaved metal all the way around the full circle. We won't be able to see those lines. Those lines are imprints from the old cylinder. Once those are all gone and we got nice smooth edge there, that's when we know we got a good straight cut. And then of course we're gonna have to measure with the new liners, check it, and then cut again for the appropriate shims that we're gonna be putting in there to get our 14th thou. A little bit of a math calculation for that, but that's no big deal. Okay, so here we're gonna go, this is gonna be about 24 thousandths deep of a cut. We're starting to hit the hole. Yeah, we're starting to take meat out of it now. So before this I did a 4th thou, then a 10th thou. Now another 10. There we go. Good. See if you can see down there what I. Oh yeah, so now I'm pretty well taking those lines out of there from what you can see originally. It's hard to see with the camera and the light. I'm gonna do one more 10 before I'm happy with it, but we're getting pretty close. So right now we're still just evening it out and getting a nice square, flat lip for that cylinder to sit on to do our actual real measurement, and then which we'll cut it again for the shims. So I'm gonna get this one finished up and then I'll cut the rest of them. Okay, I'll give you up close to what I mean by getting a nice straight counterbore to measure off of. So this counterbore here, you can see a lot of these lines in it, and you can actually see a bit of a groove right here. That's where the liner's been moving, and it's cutting into that edge or that counterbore. So if you try to put your new liners in on here, it's going to either sit on the high or it might sit in the low. Either way, it's going to screw it up, and then when you go to cut, it's not going to be right. Also, they're going to sit crooked, so you're going to measure it properly if they're crooked. Here's one that's cut. So you can see the cut one is a nice, flat, smooth, clean, straight, not crooked, good surface to put that liner in now and measure our height off of. All right, I'll get these cut, and then I'll come back when we're ready to measure some liner heights with the new liners. Okay, so the new liners came in. They have a brass shim built onto the counterbore ledge now from factory. That's a new updated thing that they did. It's supposed to help with the movement and the stress of the blocks when it's under load. We're going to be adding a shim in on top of this one. You might get lucky and you could put this new liner in and it might be at 14 thou, or if you measured beforehand and checked it. But I like to do that first cut, make sure it's straight, then I'll put the new liner in, clamp it down, then you get that measurement from a straight bore, which is very important. So I'll go ahead and get these clamps on here. I'll tighten the bolts down. You want to torque them to about 100 foot-pounds. That's going to push that cylinder in as far as it's going to go and hold it down tight, just like if the head was bolted on. Once we got it sitting in there, then we're going to go ahead and take our dial gauge. We'll get a measurement. We'll see what that is, and then we're going to figure out what kind of shim we need and how much more we're going to have to cut. Okay, I got the dial gauge set up here. Take a couple measurements out of this one. Looks like we're sitting at about 8 thou for height, which is way low. Actually, a lot of these trucks come from factory like this, which sucks and is the reason why the head gaskets blow all the time. So we're going to get this thing up to 14. So to do that, we're going to add a 20 thou shim in here, which is going to put us at 28 thousandths. So we need to cut out about 13 or 14 thou. So with the tool set back up here, I'll put about 13 thousandths of shims in the spacer here and tighten them up, and then we pull the shims back out, and then that way the tool can only cut down 13 thou. It's going to leave us with our 14, 15-ish. So I have read online some guys will run these things up to 18 thou, but that's more for competition engines. So if you want to get some longevity out of this motor and have it reliable, just stick with that 14, 15 thou and you'll be good to go. Okay, so just finishing up this first final cut on cylinder number 2. One thing I should note is I always start out with a new cutting tip when I do the final cuts, and every 2 cylinders I'll turn it to a new corner to make sure you're getting a good, precise, sharp edge to cut with every time. Then I'll take a vacuum, clean everything out, make sure you remove your foam plug, take some brake clean, spray it out, blow it out with some air after, make sure it's good and clean, and then we're going to be able to take that single shim, that 20 thou shim, we'll set it inside the bore now. This is very important that the counter bore in there is very clean so everything can sit straight. Then we'll get our new cylinder, set it back down in there. We're going to go ahead and clamp it down again, make sure you have it good and tight, and then we'll get the dial gauge set up and see where we're at. And with the clamp back down into place, with the dial gauge here, you can see we're getting exactly 14 thousandths. Just perfect, right on. So now all I gotta do is go ahead and repeat the process for the other 5 cylinders. I don't have to redo any shimming or anything. Once it's set, it's set. So I'll go ahead and cut them all, and I'm ready to assemble the rest of the motor. So I'm gonna get that done, and thanks for watching.